In the profound stillness that precedes the dawn, the heart of southern Asia lies cradled between the formidable walls of the highest mountains on earth and the unfathomable depths of the ancient seas. This is not merely a nation marked by arbitrary borders drawn upon a map. It is a living, breathing civilization, a colossal fragment of an ancient world that has stubbornly refused to be swallowed by the relentless tide of time. Here, the land itself has been meticulously sculpted by the patient, sacred rivers that have carved their eternal paths through layers of recorded history. It is a geography defined by a relentless sun, a celestial witness that has silently observed the triumphant rise and the inevitable crushing fall of countless empires over millennia. This is a land anchored by a profound, almost overwhelming spiritual gravity, yet propelled by a vibrant, chaotic human energy that pulses through its very bedrock. This is India. When viewed from the detached, cold vantage point of a satellite suspended in the silent void of space, the subcontinent appears as a vast, wildly varied tapestry of extreme contrasts. You can trace the unforgiving, sun-baked expanse of the arid deserts in the west, where the earth cracks under the weight of an unyielding heat. Your eyes can sweep across the dense, impenetrable canopy of the lush jungles, a dark green ocean of untamed life, and you can follow the sweeping curves of the fertile plains, a patchwork of agricultural survival that feeds over 1 billion souls. Down on the surface, the very quality of the air seems to undergo a physical transformation as you move from one region to another. It is a complex, heavy atmosphere, thick with the pungent, sweet scent of burning sandalwood incense mingling seamlessly with the sharp, metallic tang of heavy industry. It is an air heavy with the memory of torrential monsoon rains, carrying the faint, sweet fragrance of crushed marigold garlands offered at countless unseen altars. But to truly understand this place, you must look closer, past the dizzying scale and the overwhelming noise of the modern world. When you peer into the intricate, interlocking worlds of society, you discover a people who have not simply preserved their past as a static museum exhibit. They continue to live intensely within it, effortlessly weaving millennia of ancient tradition into the relentless, high-speed pulse of the 21st century. This is a story not merely of jarring contrasts, but of a profound, enduring coexistence. It is a story of a deep, unbreakable connection to the family unit, which forms the unshakable core of human survival here. It is a testament to the local community that provides a vital anchor in a sea of constant change. And it is an homage to the quiet, unassuming daily rituals that grant life its enduring, rhythmic pulse. The Indian day does not begin with the sudden, jarring jolt of a mechanical alarm clock echoing through a sterile room. Instead, it emerges through a gradual, almost imperceptible awakening, a slow building of a symphony composed of quiet, familiar sounds. Before the sun has fully crested the horizon to bathe the landscape in its golden, unforgiving light, a subtle energy begins to stir in the cool, blue shadow of the dawn. The mist hangs low over the quiet alleyways, a thick layer of suspended moisture that chills the skin and mutes the distant sounds of the awakening world. Listen closely in the foreground, and you will hear the rhythmic, raspy sound of a coarse twig broom meticulously sweeping dust from a weathered courtyard floor. Each stroke of the broom is deliberate, pushing away the accumulated debris of the night, preparing the physical and spiritual ground for the new sun. It is a sound that has echoed across these lands for thousands of years, a daily act of cleansing that precedes all else. From within the dimly lit depths of the home, where the shadows still cling to the peeling plaster walls, there comes the gentle, metallic clatter of heavy steel utensils. A woman is already awake, arranging the heavy pots and pans in a small, smoke-filled kitchen, lit only by the flickering orange glow of a modest cooking fire. The smell of burning wood mixes with the sharp tang of mustard oil, creating a dense aromatic fog that slowly drifts out of the windowless room. A low, rhythmic murmur of morning prayers drifts through the cool air, a deeply personal conversation with the divine before the demands of the mortal world take over. In the sprawling, concrete labyrinths of the mega-cities, this ancient morning chorus is abruptly joined by the heavy, vibrating rumble of the very first public bus grinding its gears on the empty asphalt. Meanwhile, in the countless rural villages that dot the vast countryside, the dawn is heralded by the slow, mournful lowing of cattle as they are unhurriedly led out to the sparse pastures. This fragile, fleeting window of the early morning is a sacred time of ritual, an essential period for setting the emotional and spiritual tone for the grueling day ahead. For millions of people, survival in this complex world begins with a solitary moment of spiritual observance. A silent prayer is whispered with closed eyes at a small, carefully maintained household shrine tucked away in a corner of the living room. A single incense stick is lit, its fragile tip glowing red in the gloom, sending a thin, fragrant ribbon of smoke spiraling upward to purify the stagnant air. Some take a quiet, measured walk to a local stone temple, their bare feet feeling the chill of the earth, to perform a simple act of profound gratitude for the gift of a new day. At the threshold of millions of homes, the day officially begins with the painstaking creation of a rangoli or kolam. An older woman, her back bent from years of labour, her movements practised and precise, crouches low to the damp, cool ground. The street is still completely empty, bathed in the soft, grey light of the early morning. With practised fingers, she lets white rice flour and brightly coloured powders fall onto the swept earth, creating an impossibly intricate geometric pattern. The bright reds, yellows and pure whites stand in stark, beautiful contrast against the dull, grey concrete and the brown dirt. This is not meant to be a permanent monument to her skill. It is a transient, fleeting offering of pure beauty, a vibrant welcome extended to the divine forces that govern the universe. By the time the sun has reached its zenith and the street becomes a chaotic river of shouting vendors and rumbling vehicles, this delicate masterpiece will inevitably be swept away. It will be destroyed by the careless feet of thousands of passers-by, scattered into the hot, dusty wind. Yet, she does not mourn its loss, for she knows she will kneel again the very next morning in the exact same spot to remake it from nothing. It is an endless, beautiful cycle of creation and dissolution, a silent acknowledgement of the impermanence of all things in this vast, overwhelming world. The bustling, self-organized world of street vendors, rickshaw pullers, small shopkeepers and countless family-owned businesses forms the very bedrock of urban survival. It is an informal economy built on sheer ingenuity, grim resilience, and a relentless, crushing work ethic that refuses to yield. You can see this unyielding spirit embodied in the famed Dabbawalas of Mumbai, a century-old, highly complex delivery network. Every day they transport hundreds of thousands of warm, home-cooked meals through the suffocating crowds with near-perfect precision. They rely on nothing but heavily loaded bicycles, impossibly crowded local trains, and a complex, color-coded system of markings that defies modern logistics. You can see it in the calloused hands of the local scrap dealer, the kabadiwala, who operates within a vast, informal recycling network that ensures nothing is ever truly wasted in this resource-scarce land. This indomitable spirit of frugal innovation, locally known as jugaad, is a defining hallmark of the Indian approach to problem solving, a necessary survival mechanism in an environment of limited resources. At the extreme opposite end of this economic spectrum, a completely different, new India is being aggressively forged in the gleaming, sterile glass and steel office towers of sprawling cities like Hyderabad and Bengaluru. This is the sterile, air-conditioned heart of the nation's booming technology industry, a world of highly skilled software engineers, massive customer support, call centers, and ambitious digital entrepreneurs. They are seamlessly connected by thick bundles of fiber optic cables to the relentless demands of the global marketplace. Here, deep within these climate-controlled environments, the workday is often artificially aligned with international time zones half a world away. It creates a grueling, unnatural 24/7 cycle that stands in stark, jarring contrast to the slow, seasonal rhythms of the countryside just a few hours away. This rapid, uneven development is violently transforming the nation's economic landscape, creating unprecedented wealth while simultaneously fueling the desperate aspirations of a massive, ambitious young population. Caught between these two extreme poles of existence lies a rich, vulnerable tapestry of traditional industry and ancient craft that is struggling to survive. Consider the weathered fishing communities of the palm-fringed Kerala coast, their entire livelihoods precariously intertwined with the unpredictable rhythm of the ocean tides and the changing climate. Think of the skilled textile producers of the arid Rajasthan desert, their hands desperately preserving centuries-old, intricate techniques of hand-weaving and natural dyeing in the face of cheap, mass-produced fabrics. Think of the vast, heavily polluted industrial workshops on the outskirts of major cities that physically power the nation's explosive growth, often at a terrible human and environmental cost. It is a fiercely dynamic, often ruthlessly chaotic economic landscape, a place of immense, overwhelming challenge and boundless, untapped potential. To even begin to understand the profound complexities of India is to understand its deep, essential relationship with food, for it is in the smoke-filled, chaotic space of the kitchen that so much of its culture, deep-rooted history, and dizzying diversity is physically expressed. Indian food is not merely sustenance, it is a direct, honest, and often fiery reflection of the very landscape from which it originates. It is vibrant, incredibly complex, and deeply, inextricably connected to the violent shifts of the local seasons. The beating heart of any traditional Indian kitchen, from the wealthiest urban mansion to the humblest rural hut, is the ubiquitous spice box, the masala dabba. Spices here are not used merely for simple, superficial flavor, but as a kind of foundational culinary grammar. They form a complex, layered language of sharp aromas and intense tastes that varies dramatically, almost violently, from one geographical region to another. The quiet, daily ritual of cooking often begins with the rhythmic, hypnotic grinding of fresh, whole spices on a flat stone, releasing strong, fragrant oils that form the essential base of the impending meal. The sudden, sharp whistle of a modern metal pressure cooker is a universally familiar sound echoing in almost every home across the vast subcontinent. It is an unmistakable auditory signal that the humble, life-sustaining staple of simple dal and boiled rice is nearly ready to be served. The cuisine of this land is so incredibly diverse that it is practically a vast, varied continent in itself. In the cold, mountainous north, one finds rich, heavy, creamy curries, thick flatbreads baked in blistering hot tandoor clay ovens, and a heavy reliance on rich dairy products like ghee and paneer to ward off the chill. Travel to the humid, tropical south, and the flavor profiles change entirely, becoming significantly lighter and more pungent. Here, meals are built upon a solid foundation of fermented rice, earthy lentils, fresh coconut milk, and a much more generous, fiery use of sour tamarind and potent red chilies. Move to the east to bustling, chaotic places like Kolkata, and the pungent smell of sharp mustard oil and the delicate flavor of freshwater fish become the absolute, non-negotiable staples of survival. Meanwhile, in the arid west, the local cuisine uniquely reflects a harsh blend of unforgiving coastal realities and stark desert influences, forcing a reliance on dried ingredients and robust, long-lasting preparations. Many of these deep-rooted culinary traditions are also profoundly informed by ancient, holistic systems of belief, most notably Ayurveda. In this ancient medical system, food is viewed not simply as basic caloric sustenance, but as potent, preventative medicine required to keep the body in delicate balance with its harsh environment. But the intense culture of food in India extends far beyond the private confines of the family home. The noisy, crowded streets of every single town and mega city are vibrantly alive with the aggressive sizzle and the heavy, intoxicating aroma of street food. Thousands of small, precarious stalls offer a dazzling, overwhelming variety of cheap, heavily spiced snacks and quick meals that are both delicious and absolutely essential for the survival of the working poor. The humble, ubiquitous chai stand, often just a small wooden table with a boiling pot, serves as a crucial cornerstone of daily social life. It is a democratic space where people from wildly different walks of life momentarily gather for a brief, vital moment of respite and intense, animated conversation. They bond over a small, scalding hot glass of incredibly sweet, thick, milky tea. Vegetarianism is incredibly widespread across the subcontinent, deeply rooted in ancient religious and philosophical traditions that strongly emphasize the critical concept of non-violence, or ahimsa. But at its very core, the consumption of food in India is fundamentally about the act of sharing and the deep cultural obligation of hospitality. The ancient, sacred principle of Atithi Devo Bhava, meaning the guest is equivalent to God, is deeply and permanently ingrained in the social psyche. A host, even one living in absolute poverty, will often go to extraordinary, sacrificial lengths to ensure that a visitor is well fed, often offering their own portion. The shared family meal is considered a sacred, vital ritual, a designated time for the sprawling family unit to come together, to reconnect, and to nourish both the exhausted physical body and the weary spirit. The visual concept of the thali, a large metal platter meticulously arranged with a selection of different, contrasting dishes, perfectly encapsulates this holistic approach. It is intentionally designed to provide a perfectly balanced, harmonious, and complete sensory experience, offering a literal taste of the whole universe on a single plate. The natural world in this vast subcontinent is not merely a passive, picturesque backdrop for human drama. It is an active, overwhelmingly powerful, and deeply revered force that has aggressively shaped the nation's culture, its deep-rooted spirituality, and its daily way of life for millennia. The sheer, uncompromising diversity of this physical landscape is staggering to comprehend. Travel to the far north, where the air grows thin and cold, and the jagged, snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas stand as formidable, silent, spiritual sentinels against the sky. These towering, silent giants are not just geological formations, they are widely considered by millions to be the literal, physical abode of ancient gods. It is a place of grueling, dangerous pilgrimage, where ascetic monks seek total isolation and profound spiritual clarity amidst the biting frost and the howling mountain winds. From deep within these high, frozen glaciers flow the great, life-giving rivers of the subcontinent, most notably the mighty Ganges. To the people who live along its muddy banks, the river is not just a body of flowing water, it is a sacred, living, breathing goddess. Its murky, turbulent waters are believed to provide not only vital physical sustenance for agricultural survival, but also profound spiritual purification for millions of devotees. To follow the Ganges from its freezing, pristine source high in the mountains down to the sprawling, densely populated delta, where it finally meets the warm sea, is to trace the very biological lifeline of the entire subcontinent. She is Mata Ganga, Mother Ganga, a supreme deity worshipped in liquid form. In the rural heartland away from the roaring rivers, the great, sprawling banyan tree often serves as the physical and spiritual heart of the village community. Its vast, twisting canopy of dark green leaves provides essential, cooling shade for formal village gatherings and informal daily gossip. It is a safe, shaded place for barefoot children to play in the dust, and it stands as a silent, enduring witness to countless passing generations of rural life. Travel further south and the harsh landscape dramatically softens into a humid, tropical world of thick palm-fringed coastlines. Here, the serene, labyrinthine backwaters of Kerala form a slow-moving, watery highway lined with dense, impenetrable vegetation. Conversely, in the far west, the arid, unforgiving deserts of Rajasthan stretch endlessly toward the shimmering, heat-distorted horizon. It is a harsh land of stark, terrifying beauty, inhabited by resilient nomadic people who have learned to survive on the absolute bare minimum of water. Yet, life across this entire wildly varied subcontinent is universally governed by one dramatic, overriding climatic event, the explosive arrival of the annual monsoon. After the long, brutal, suffocating dry heat of the merciless summer, when the earth cracks and the dust chokes the air, the first heavy drops of rain are a moment of profound, collective relief. The monsoon is far more than just a predictable, seasonal weather pattern. It is the great, violent renewer of life, the unstoppable natural force that completely replenishes the parched earth and dictates the rigid, unforgiving rhythm of all agricultural survival. Its sudden, torrential arrival signals a crucial time of rebirth, triggering an explosion of green growth across the previously dead, brown landscape. This massive climatic shift is joyously celebrated in ancient poetry, traditional song, and modern film, serving as a deep cultural touchstone that emotionally connects almost every Indian. These violent, changing seasons dictate not only the specific types of crops that can be successfully grown, but also the exact timing of the vibrant festivals that are celebrated and the specific types of food that are consumed. To live in this land is to live in a state of constant, intimate, and often dangerous negotiation with the overwhelming forces of nature. It is a precarious relationship built on deep, healthy respect, total physical dependence, and a profound, lingering sense of awe. Despite its deep, unyielding roots in these timeless ancient traditions, modern India simultaneously moves at a dizzying, almost terrifying pace. The country's vast, overloaded transportation networks serve as a perfect microcosm of its brilliantly organized daily chaos. They are a loud, vibrating testament to the incredible, desperate ingenuity required to physically move more than 1 billion restless people every single day. The incredibly crowded, open-doored local trains of a mega-city like Mumbai are not just a simple mode of public transport. They are the city's pulsing, heavily congested circulatory system, a vital, dangerous lifeline that carries millions of exhausted people to and from grueling work shifts. They operate with a relentless, terrifying energy, with passengers hanging precariously from the sides of the moving carriages. In stark contrast, deep beneath the chaotic streets of the major cities, sleek, heavily air-conditioned, ultra-modern metro systems have begun to radically transform urban commuting. These pristine, quiet underground tunnels offer a surreal, orderly vision of a high-tech, highly regulated future. Yet, on the sun-baked, dusty streets just above, daily life continues in its loud, familiar, chaotic dance. The bright yellow and green auto rickshaw remains the quintessential, incredibly nimble vehicle for aggressively navigating the choked, narrow, urban labyrinth. Meanwhile, the battered, overloaded motorcycle serves as the primary, essential workhorse of the average Indian family, often carrying 3 or 4 people at once through the suffocating smog. The constant, deafening sound of vehicular honking is completely misunderstood by outsiders. It is not necessarily a sign of road rage or aggression. It is instead a complex, continuous form of acoustic communication, a constant audio mapping of shared physical space. It is a loud, necessary signal that simply says, "I am here, I am moving, and I am passing you now." A long-distance, multi-day train journey across the subcontinent is an intense social event in itself, a rolling, metallic microcosm of the entire nation. Inside the cramped, swaying carriages, complete strangers are forced to become temporary, intimate neighbours, sharing homemade food, personal stories, and wildly differing political perspectives to pass the long hours. This seamless, often jarring blend of the incredibly old and the hyper-new is one of the most defining, bewildering features of contemporary life here. It is a place where a slow, wooden bullock cart, unchanged for centuries, might casually share the same broken asphalt road with a sleek, imported luxury car. It is a society where ancient, crowded, spice-scented bazaars are now brightly illuminated by the cold, blue glow of millions of cheap smartphones. For the burgeoning youth of this vast nation, daily life is a complex, often painful navigation between the immense, gravitational pull of ancient tradition and the blinding, uncertain promise of the globalized future. In the minds of millions of families, formal education is universally viewed as the single, most critical pathway to a better, more secure life. It is a deeply ingrained belief held with an almost religious, desperate fervour across every social stratum. The simple, stiff, cotton school uniform is considered a great social leveller, a visible symbol of a shared, arduous journey toward upward mobility. The national education system is notoriously demanding, built upon a rigid foundation of strict discipline, rote memorization, and a punishing culture of high stakes, hyper-competitive entrance examinations that ruthlessly determine a student's entire future trajectory. The crushing pressure to succeed is immense, a heavy, invisible weight shouldered not just by the isolated student, but collectively by the entire extended family, who have often sacrificed everything to pay the tuition fees. Across the country, grim, neon-lit towns are filled with thousands of crowded coaching centres, where exhausted students spend years of their youth trapped in stuffy, fluorescent-lit rooms. They sit shoulder to shoulder, the air thick with the smell of cheap ink, old paper, and palpable anxiety, relentlessly preparing for the brutal exams to enter prestigious engineering and medical colleges. This mass, desperate migration of youth from the quiet, stagnant villages to the chaotic, unforgiving cities in search of education is a defining social phenomenon of the modern era. It has created an entire restless generation that is deeply, painfully caught between two completely different worlds. This current generation is arguably the very first to be fully, seamlessly immersed in the chaotic flow of a globalized, digital world. They are intimately connected through the glowing screens of their smartphones to foreign ideas, distant cultures, and unimaginable opportunities that were completely alien to their hard-working parents. They are fiercely ambitious, incredibly tech-savvy, and desperately eager to make their permanent mark on the rapidly shifting global stage. Yet, despite this digital umbilical cord to the outside world, they remain deeply, fundamentally connected to the ancient roots of their homeland. The great, defining psychological challenge for young Indians today is to find a livable, sustainable way to balance their fierce, personal aspirations with the heavy, unyielding expectations of their traditional families. This intense, internal conflict often leads to deep, difficult conversations within the private sanctuary of the home as families desperately try to negotiate the rigid boundaries between individual, westernized freedom and collective, Eastern responsibility. It is a delicate, ongoing, and often heartbreaking balancing act. How to fully embrace the lucrative opportunities of the modern capitalist world without entirely losing the profound sense of identity, duty, and belonging that is so deeply rooted in their heritage. The natural rhythm of day and night across the subcontinent is a fascinating study in dramatically shifting, almost violent, human energies. The daylight hours are a time of intense, aggressive, outward-focused activity. The massive, sprawling cities literally roar to life with the deafening, continuous sound of choked traffic, the frantic hustle of desperate commerce, and the overwhelming kinetic energy of millions of human bodies constantly on the move. The sprawling, open-air markets reach their absolute chaotic peak under the harsh midday sun, creating a total sensory overload of vibrant, clashing sights, deafening sounds, and pungent, overwhelming smells. The blinding sun is a powerful, often relentless, and punishing physical force ruthlessly dictating the agonizing pace of physical labor and survival. The collective energy of the daytime is wildly productive, dangerously dynamic, and utterly relentless, a true, frightening reflection of a massive, developing nation in a desperate hurry to grow. However, as dusk finally begins to fall, painting the smog-filled sky in bruised shades of purple and deep orange, a sudden, palpable, almost magical change occurs across the landscape. The frantic, desperate survivalist energy of the day slowly begins to subside, gradually replaced by a much softer, more inward, and deeply contemplative mood. The ambient sounds of the cooling evening are entirely different from the roar of the day. You hear the sharp, clear, rhythmic ringing of brass temple bells signaling the start of the evening arti rituals. You hear the haunting, melodic call to prayer, echoing from the towering minarets of the local mosque, cutting through the cooling air. You hear the low, comforting murmur of intimate family conversation drifting out from the open windows of countless, tightly packed homes. This is the sacred, protected time for the family, a time for the exhausted workers to finally return to the safe, private sanctuary of the home for a shared, quiet meal. In the major cities, the neon-lit streets may remain vibrantly alive with bustling night markets and sizzling street food stalls, but the overall frantic tempo of human existence noticeably slows. In many places, as the heat finally breaks, it is a common, cherished daily ritual for entire extended families to gather on the flat concrete rooftops or in the dusty, open courtyards. They sit together in the dark to catch the faint, cooling evening breeze, to talk quietly about the struggles of the day, and to silently watch the chaos of the world finally come to a close. The deep night possesses its own unique, subtle soundscape. The distant, echoing bark of a stray street dog, the rhythmic, reassuring tap of the elderly night watchman's wooden stick against the pavement, and the low, constant, vibrating hum of millions of air conditioning units fighting the residual heat. Out in the vast, remote rural villages, a profound, heavy, and absolute quiet descends upon the earth. The overwhelming darkness is broken only by the weak, flickering yellow light of a few bare, incandescent bulbs and the vast, silent, awe-inspiring canopy of the brilliant stars above. It is in this profound, nightly calm that the essential, unbreakable bonds of family and community are quietly reaffirmed, providing a vital time for deep rest and physical restoration in preparation for the inevitable, grueling dawn of a new day. Yet, living in this vast, incredibly complex and beautiful nation is absolutely not without its profound, often terrifying, systemic challenges. The sheer, crushing weight of over 1 billion human beings places an immense, unimaginable and constant strain on the crumbling physical infrastructure, the rapidly dwindling natural resources, and the fragile, dying environment. The constant, desperate daily negotiation for basic physical space is a harsh, unavoidable reality for hundreds of millions of people. The rapid, explosive, and often completely unplanned growth of the mega-cities has led to significant, deadly, and escalating problems with catastrophic air and water pollution. During certain times of the year, a thick, toxic, grey smog descends upon the major metropolises, choking the lungs and burning the eyes of the populace. The streets are plagued by massive, gridlocked traffic congestion that can easily bring a sprawling city of 20 million people to a complete, agonizing standstill for hours on end. The daily, exhausting struggle for basic, fundamental amenities like access to clean, drinkable water and a reliable, uninterrupted supply of electricity is still a harsh, daily reality for a massive portion of the population. The glaring, inescapable visual gap between extreme, unimaginable wealth and crushing, desperate poverty remains a stark, persistent, and deeply troubling reality. While a new, highly educated and fiercely aspirational middle class is growing rapidly and accumulating unprecedented wealth, hundreds of millions still struggle daily just to secure the absolute basic necessities for human survival. The majestic physical landscape, for all its breathtaking cinematic beauty, can often be a brutally unforgiving and highly destructive force. There is the constant, looming threat of devastating seasonal droughts. During these harsh periods, the merciless sun bakes the cracked, brown earth until it resembles shattered pottery, and the fragile agricultural crops wither into dry, useless dust. Conversely, there are the catastrophic, terrifying floods brought on by an unpredictable, hyperactive monsoon. In a matter of hours, muddy, roaring waters aggressively wash away entire rural settlements and completely destroy decades of grueling human labor. Beyond the violent, unpredictable forces of physical nature, there is also the constant, delicate, and often agonizing internal negotiation between the ancient past and the uncertain future. How exactly does a vast nation burdened with such a deep, profoundly ancient cultural heritage manage to successfully preserve its unique core identity in the face of relentless, homogenizing global modernization? How does it carefully balance the absolute, desperate, urgent need for rapid economic development and poverty eradication with the equally urgent moral imperative to protect its incredibly fragile, rapidly degrading natural ecosystems? How does a society so rigidly stratified ensure that the immense, unprecedented financial benefits of modern economic growth are equitably shared by all, and not just aggressively hoarded by a select, privileged few living in gated communities? These are not simple, easily resolved academic questions. They are the complex, heavy subjects of a constant, vigorous, and highly emotional ongoing national conversation. These fierce debates echo daily in the grand, colonial-era halls of the national parliament. But they are equally loud and passionate in the ink-stained pages of local newspapers and at countless, crowded, roadside chai stands across the vast subcontinent. Picture a group of exhausted men, their faces illuminated by the dim, flickering orange glow of a kerosene lamp, arguing politics over tiny glass cups of steaming tea, while the heavy monsoon rain aggressively hammers against the rusted, tin roof above them. Yet, in the undeniable face of these overwhelming, deeply entrenched, systemic challenges, there exists a remarkable, almost defiant, spirit of human resilience. It is a profound, ingrained, cultural ability to constantly adapt, to bend without breaking. It is the sheer willpower to somehow find incredibly ingenious, makeshift solutions in the absolute most difficult, resource-starved of circumstances. So why, in a rapidly globalizing world of seemingly endless, lucrative geographical possibilities, do over 1 billion people choose to remain so deeply, stubbornly rooted in this often agonizingly challenging, endlessly complex, and always overwhelmingly intense land? The true answers are completely invisible to the cold, detached satellite cameras in space. They are inextricably woven into the very microscopic fabric of their daily, exhausting lives. They stay because of the unbreakable biological and spiritual bonds of the extended family. When a child is born, they are instantly enveloped in a vast network of watchful aunts, protective uncles, and wise grandparents, creating an impenetrable shield against the harsh realities of the outside world. When an elder finally falls weak, there are always dozens of hands ready to tend to them, an unspoken, permanent pact of generational care that requires no formal legal contract. They stay for the profound, unshakable and highly protective sense of local community. This is a harsh, unforgiving place where the family unit actively functions as the ultimate, non-negotiable social safety net. It is a reliable, closed-loop source of immediate emotional comfort and vital financial support that is infinitely more trusted and reliable than any cold, bureaucratic government institution could ever hope to be. They stay for the sheer, unfathomable depth and the intoxicating richness of the ancient culture. It is a life that is completely, overwhelmingly steeped in profound meaning, in strict daily ritual, and in a massive spiritual heritage. This heritage provides an essential, grounding sense of absolute purpose and cosmic perspective in a terrifyingly chaotic, rapidly changing world. This is a rare ancient land where the sacred realm is not artificially separated from the profane, dirty reality of basic survival, but is completely, intimately intertwined with it. It is a place where a simple, mundane daily act of cooking a handful of raw rice over a smoking wood fire can be instantly elevated to a formal, sacred offering to the unseen gods. It is a place where a wide, muddy, heavily polluted river is still genuinely, deeply revered as a living, breathing, maternal goddess capable of washing away a lifetime of human sins. They stay for the simple, quiet, universally understood everyday joys that make the grueling struggle entirely worthwhile. The sharp, comforting, familiar taste of a hot, heavily spiced home-cooked meal shared on a cold, damp evening. The loud, colourful, overwhelming communal warmth of a shared religious festival that temporarily erases rigid, ancient social boundaries. The deep, emotional comfort of a familiar, weathered physical landscape that holds the buried, sacred bones of their ancestors. And above all, they stay for the sheer, stubborn resilience, the seemingly irrational baseline optimism, and the incredible enduring human capacity for finding genuine, loud joy in the absolute dead center of crushing daily hardship. The very overwhelming sensory chaos that can seem so utterly terrifying and exhausting to an outsider is, paradoxically, also the primary source of the nation's vibrant, chaotic, and relentlessly creative life energy. To be Indian, to live and breathe in this tight, crowded space, is to be an active, participating character in a grand, epic, and completely continuous human story. It is a vast, complicated, and often bloody historical narrative that stretches unbroken back for more than 5,000 long, heavy years. And it is a massive story that is still being aggressively, loudly written every single day on the crowded, dusty streets. You can walk through the crumbling ruins of an ancient stone temple, touch the cold, carved pillars that have stood silently for millennia, and turn around to see a young student studying complex global mathematics on a glowing digital screen. It is a timeline that folds directly in upon itself, where the distant past, the chaotic present, and the gleaming future occupy the exact same physical and spiritual space. It is the profound, grounding feeling of having deep, unshakable roots that are planted not merely in the physical, dusty soil, but deeply embedded in the intangible fabric of time itself. It is the quiet, internalized knowledge that one is a tiny, essential thread in a vast, incredibly intricate, and beautifully enduring human tapestry. It is a powerful, irreplaceable, and deeply emotional connection that provides an absolute, unshakable sense of universal belonging. This is not merely a geographic location drawn on a map. It is a place that is not just physically lived in, but is deeply, heavily, and viscerally felt in the blood, in the bones, and in the soul, in every single, fleeting moment of every single day.